Hello and welcome. This week we're talking squeegees to drones, cost-effective innovation in facilities. I'm joined by Grant Persall of Skydweller Technologies. Hi, Grant.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. This is a much lighter topic than last week, which was dealing with difficult owners. So I'm delighted to have something that is fun and exciting and technology driven. When did you get involved with Skydweller, and what is it that you guys do?
So, great question to start off with. So, we actually got started in 2014, which is about a year and a half ago, actually, last April. And basically, it started off with the awareness of realizing that there are drones that can clean buildings and building facade windows and whatnot. And then, like most things, I did a deep dive once I learned about the technology and realized that there were a number of injuries and deaths that happen every single year in the window cleaning industry, as well as the building envelope space. And so it started off with sort of the idea of, well, how do we do something that's safer and basically going to respect and help the building's longevity. And so it's a weird thing. It started off, like I said, with just sort of one idea, and then it spanned off into all these other things. So saving people's lives, preventing injuries, helping buildings to last longer, which is something I had no idea existed. And then as well, doing something faster and doing something cheaper.
Fantastic. I love that. So you guys have been around for just over a year. What types of buildings have you tackled so far?
So it's really interesting. We had no idea, like a lot of businesses. This is my sixth business, so I have a lot of business experience. But I always say every business is sort of like having a child. Each one's completely different, and so you might have some experience on the mechanics, but each one's got its own personality. And so, our first job we got was actually cleaning Victoria General Hospital. So we went straight into the commercial large scale projects. We learned a lot during that project, but what we really learned that was really impressive to us was is the closest bid that they had next to us was 8 times the price that ours was. So the amount of money that they saved was able to be conserved to use to buy medical equipment. We're considering like massive, massive savings on something like that. So it was an opportunity to
Incredible.
sort of really understand, wow, okay, what we have here is really cost effective. And then the flip side immediately after that was we started cleaning airports and then we started cleaning commercial buildings. So we went right into cleaning places like Vancouver Convention Center, airports, hospitals. We even cleaned CBC Radio downtown Vancouver. So all sorts of large scale corporations and industrial projects.
Excellent. Well, it's time that strata owners learned a bit more about what you do, and that and property managers are a big part of our audience. So it's very cool to see how rapidly you were able to translate from uh, commercial as it is in the hospital and large scale sense to a whole range of different types of communities.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want me to kind of go along the slide that we have in front of us here and kind of communicate along that side of things. But essentially what we did was is when we started this business, we looked at it not just from a service standpoint, but we wanted to create a technology company. So even though we are a service-based business with the ultimate result of going out, cleaning buildings, making people's buildings clean, having the windows look beautiful, all that sort of great stuff, we really wanted to focus on the technology aspect. So we focused on a lot of technology that's patented. So we have a lot of, and I can get into the details later, but we've got a lot of technology that helps basically do things quicker, do them safer, of course, at a better quality, and then more cost effective. So realistically, we've kind of perfected that over the last year. We're a quick study. So again, we have our one of our partners actually comes from an engineering background, so he had tremendous number of experience in drone, not only just drone piloting, but in terms of the mechanics and the engineering systems behind it. So
Fantastic. So let's talk about the safety angle, Grant.
for sure. So again, unbeknownst to me, I did not realize that there's a ton of injury claims in the space. We always think about somebody, God forbid, falling off of a building. But one of the more tragic issues is the fact that if somebody falls off of a rope for only 3 to 4 feet, it can break their hip, it can break all sorts of bones in their body. I had no understanding of that whatsoever prior to this business. And so, because of all our pilots have their feet firmly planted on the ground, there's no risk of that. So we basically drop workers' compensation board claims by 99%. Also, when there's people scaling off the side of a building, there's the risk of a boot going through a window or a window cracking or something along those lines. So we actually reduce incident reports by 90%. Of course, since no one's up on the building, we reduce death by 100%. And one interesting thing as well, which was really cool, is because when we clean the windows, we don't just push. So if you think of a squeegee, you're pushing everything off to the sides of the window. In this case, we're actually cleaning the window sills, and as a result, it prevents algae and mildew and mold buildup in the caulking of the window, which actually allows the building's lifespan to be extended up to 30% longer.
Oh, that's interesting. I know how big of a problem waterproofing is in Vancouver,
Well,
and
yeah, with
that's
any rainy environment's going to have a lot of that, right? So,
absolutely. Wow. Okay, so that's fantastic. Safety aspects first and foremost,
So I,
and
I always
then
throw this slide up. I always find it humorous to see how much technology's changed because when it comes to, anything like computers, we can see it more readily. So I always laugh. In 1989, this was considered the top of the line computer at Radio Shack, which of course no longer exists anymore. And this computer was $8,500, which if you can think of what $8,500 was in 1989 was astronomical.
yeah,
And I always laugh because in small print it says monitor and mouse not included. So for $8,500, you still didn't get a mouse or a monitor, which is pretty bonkers. And it's crazy because if anyone that has a smartphone, they're going to know that the computer they have in their pocket is going to be 10,000 times plus more powerful than that. And yet 30 years ago, that's what we used for a professional grade computer. Yet
yeah.
30 years later, we're still using squeegees and we're still using traditional window cleaning methods, right? So it was about time somebody stepped in and said, hey, let's advance this technology a little bit.
Fair, fair. I think that it is time to start using more modern tools and technologies to do things, and I'm excited to learn more about how.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, our main partner, he comes from an engineering background, and so there's patented deionization cleaning system in the van. So we have a basically a fully encapsulated system. We drive to a job site, we show up, and in the van there's a reservoir tank, and in that reservoir tank there's a deionization system. What that means is it takes all the particulates out of the water. So a lot of people, when they think about cleaning a window using drones, they sort of think, well, is there some sort of mechanism that's wiping and cleaning the window physically? And the answer is there isn't. There's nothing that physically touches the window. So as a result, the water that gets sprayed on the window has to be heated up to a certain temperature and then sprayed. Because there's no particulates in the water ends up drying streak free and without any lines, any speckles, anything like that at all. And the reverse charge also prevents dust from accumulating onto that window for the next 12 hours after. So think of it almost like two magnets repelling each other. There's a magnetic charge that's put onto the window and it prevents anything from sticking to it.
Very cool. So,
Yeah,
I not only are you able to remove the material, but it will dry, as you say, there's no particulates in it. It will
correct.
dry without any spots. That's cool.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with a squeegee because as soon as you start dipping your squeegee in and rubbing it on stuff, you're gonna put ions back into the solution, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So that's kind of one thing that makes us extremely unique, and as well because it's a drone, we can get into extremely difficult to reach places. So a lot of the projects we've done have actually been things that have never been cleaned before. So we've cleaned projects that have been 30, 40 plus years where the building since inception hasn't been cleaned. So it's been
Wow.
interesting to sort of try and tackle those complicated jobs.
How long does this kind of electrostatic effect hold?
It's anywhere from 6 to 12 hours. It's like anything else, it
Fantastic.
depends on sort of the environment that it's in. So,
Yeah.
typically, sunlight's the fastest way of destroying whatever sort of charge exists. So, again, more often than not, I usually say, 12 hours is sort of the maximum, and then at that point, it kind of becomes like a regular window again, and it'll start
Great.
accumulating whatever's
But
on there.
enough time for it to dry and make sure
Oh,
that
yeah.
there's no debris on it.
Yeah, usually it tends to, again, case by case, but usually it tends to dry within minutes, depending on how hot the water is that we've temperaturized it at too. So yeah,
Fantastic. Very
yeah.
cool.
So again, cleaning for longer. So again, one of the other things as well as I mentioned, we clean the window sills. So in a rainy environment like Vancouver, one of the challenges is if you clean the window, it can look really clean, but if you've pushed all the dirt into the corner of the window sills, the first day of rainfall, all of a sudden it dislodges all of that debris, and now all of a sudden you have this streaking that goes down the windows below it. And so because we're cleaning out the sills, we're eliminating that sort of debris in the corner. So the next day of rainfall, it's going to make for a longer lasting clean.
That is very cool. And I mean, anyone who's lived in Vancouver knows there's a big difference between the south and the north side of their building.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
massively.
So so the
Myself
north
included, I
side,
totally understand.
for those that don't live here or haven't paid attention, the north side is where you get this huge amount of moss buildup throughout all months of the year because the moisture sort of settles there, and it's a real problem. Whereas the south side, for the summer months especially, but all year round, does get dried by the sun much faster, and you have, I think, quite different dynamics and quite different impacts on the building's exterior, on the accumulation of mold and moss, and also um, the length that your waterproofing will last. One side getting baked and the other side getting impacted by all of this growth and mildew. Interesting because you're able to clear that all away and level the playing field a bit, and perhaps equal out the life expectancy of a building. I like that.
You're spot on. Yeah, typically when we clean a commercial building, residential building as well too, it's the north side of the building that requires a little bit more TLC for sure.
Interesting. Interesting. Thanks.
So yeah, we kind of touched on this already, but yeah, just the big thing is improving the longevity of the building. So of course, we can't reverse any damage that's been done previously, but if we're working on, say, newer buildings where we've kind of come in the early stages, we can continue to clean those window sills, and it just allows the window caulking to last for a longer period of time. So if we're working on a building that's relatively new and we're continually upkeeping that building, we can extend the life expectancy of the window seals for about 30% longer as a result. So, of course, if the building's already, 10 years into its life and we start helping the window sills 10 years in, it's going to help, but it's not going to extend it as long as if we get to the building right away. And I always say as well, it's just like any sort of maintenance. If you clean the building twice a year and keep on top of it, things are going to last a lot longer than if it's left for a few years at a time.
That's a good point as well. How many times a year do you traditionally deal with a residential building? Is twice a good cycle?
Yeah, usually twice is typical. It's standard. Some places do more. I won't say if it's necessary or not because some buildings tend to
Yeah.
accumulate more debris than others, but we find that most residential buildings typically do twice a year. Most commercial buildings they'll do sort of once or twice a year as well. We also do not just windows, but we do facade cleaning as well. So facade cleaning is a little bit different. I would say windows is twice a year at a minimum, and then facade cleaning is usually once a year or once every 2 years.
Ah, okay, great. I talk a lot about special levies and about big capital projects, and extending the life of your building's assets like this by anywhere near 30% would make a huge difference to the timing and cost that this puts onto owners. So it is an investment that not only lets you see out of your windows more clearly, and maintains a good external appearance, but it will save you money by pushing those costs out.
Absolutely. And I understand too, everybody's price conscious. Everyone's looking at sort of, budget constraints and whatnot. So it can sometimes seem like, oh, like, do we really have to clean this building? Can we, put it off another X number of months? And totally understand that. But we have a slide later, but if you look at the long-term effects, it's actually cheaper to clean the building more regularly because it stops preventative issues from happening down the road. But um, as well, one great thing that we can do with our drones is because we're not on the building itself scaling off the side, we're not subject to the same rules and regulations. So we can actually clean at any time during the day and at night. So what's great for maybe not so much for residential buildings, but for a lot of commercial and private type of buildings, especially security related buildings, we can clean at night. So we've done universities, hospitals, government buildings after hours where there's nobody on site. And so we can work from, we've had shifts run from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. cleaning all night with drone technology, which is great.
That is great. I mean, obviously, in a residential setting, you wouldn't want it too late into the evening, but being able to do it when otherwise a traditional rope or other safety system, whether you're actually sending someone scaling down the building, couldn't is a real plus. What do you mean about all year? Is there not a time at which you wouldn't consider doing windows?
Yeah, so obviously there are some seasonal constraints. So, once it gets below a certain temperature, there's obviously going to be some restrictions. But here in the West Coast, typically we can clean all year round. So Last year, for example, we had a number of jobs that actually spanned in December and in January. So typically, you're not going to see
Wow.
anyone doing window cleaning during that time of year. However, we're able to do that again because we're not subject to the same rules because there's no danger of somebody slipping off a roof because of frost or ice or anything like that. So as long as their temperature is above a certain degree threshold, even if there's snow on the ground, we're actually still able to clean. And because we spray at a temperature and the evaporation is very quick, there's no risk of any sort of cracking or any issue to the windows or anything of that nature. So it's great because a lot of times we end up doing most of our cleaning in the spring and summer. And so, of course, there's price surge as a result because everyone's seasonal. We do a lot of work during sort of the off season, which is not only is it advantageous price wise, but it's a great way to keep buildings maintained kind of on a more consistent basis.
Wow, that's fantastic. And
And
who is able to do this?
yeah, so great question. So we have, so again, we have certified pilots. So of course, you can't just grab a drone and start flying it around. You have to have a proper advanced pilot's license. That's done through Transport Canada. So everybody's licensed. Everyone has to actually be certified, and then we have to submit our flight log to Transport Canada and NavCan. So every time you see a drone up in the air, it has to have been approved. So you can't just have drones kind of randomly flying around. As I mentioned, we've been doing airports and security sensitive areas as well. So again, for those areas, there's certain requirements that we have to follow, but nonetheless, we have that. We also have our own in-house 8-point pilot program. Obviously, the drones that we fly are very expensive. We don't want to have any sort of accidents or anything like that. To be clear, all of our drones are tethered, so there would never be the risk of a drone flying away or getting into trouble. But we don't want to have those drones damaged or have any issues with them. So we make sure that everybody that's flying them is extremely well prepared, very experienced, and competent at what they do.
Uh, One of the things that comes to mind when you talk about needing approval and filing these flight plans, if you will, is what's the lead time that's required for something like this? If someone was to call you with an urgent request, what is the quickest that
We
you
can,
could get someone
depending
out?
on the circumstances, we can do a turnaround time in as fast as 24 hours. So we've got a
Wow.
great yeah, we've got a great relationship with them. We've been working with them for over a year now. We've done a lot of very sensitive projects. So, for example, even if we were to log something in advance to the, say, Vancouver airport, that's something that's changing on the regular. I mean, minute to minute, there's always changes. So we have to be on a live correspondence with whoever is responsible for that job site, whether it's NavCam, Transport Canada. So we keep in very close correspondence. So the great thing is because we have a great relationship with them, we're able to basically in real time determine, what we can do, what we can't do, when we can, when we can't fly. Even when we were working with the hospital, some hospitals have a helipad. And so there's certain scenarios where we have to have our flights grounded, maybe for a 20-minute period while a helicopter is coming in and flying and landing on top of the building.
Right.
So we're in constant correspondence with air traffic control.
Very interesting. Are there certain site conditions that make this more complicated and require more preparation? I'm thinking, all good in a townhouse community where there's lots of setbacks from streets, but what if you're right on the street?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are scenarios where we have to obtain permits as well. So permits are a lot different than flight pass. Permits can take some little bit more time because it's working with the
Right.
city directly. So
Mhm.
again, it's city by city. We've had scenarios where permits are issued very, very quickly. We've had other scenarios where it can be a little bit delayed. So in that case, you're absolutely correct. The more time we have, the better.
Right.
Our flight path, again, we have a direct link to communicate, so it's very easy. The permit side, we can usually get that done fairly quickly, but we always suggest about a week turnaround time just to be on the safe side.
That makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
is the permit for the drone specifically, or is this for clearing sometimes a
It's
a
it's
a
clearing,
parking
yeah,
lane?
so it's
Yeah.
it's not so much the drone, it's more about clearing the walkway. So again, we have to follow certain safety protocols. So if we have to, say, block off a sidewalk for a certain amount of hours or something like that, or divert traffic or something of that nature, then we have to follow those protocols and rules. So it's just
Is
a
that
matter of
affecting
making
every
sure.
type of exterior cleaning, Grant, or is that specifically because you're using a drone?
No, it would be every type of cleaning or any sort of commercial service. So, you've probably seen in numerous cases in downtown Vancouver, there might be, a sign that says, people above, there's some water dripping down, there might be some cones. So that would be an example of where they've usually, or they should have obtained a permit, and they're allowed to cone off that area as a restricted zone.
That happens all the time.
Oh yeah. As I mentioned, we've invested heavily. So actually, our biggest expense as a company, interestingly enough, is in the technology. So we have a whole team of developers. We've got incredible team, a graduate team from UBC. We've done some work with BCIT. We also have some lead tech entrepreneurs that previously were in Silicon Valley that are now working with us, which is fantastic. Super grateful to have them. So we've got a bunch of proprietary tech that we're developing. And so the plan is probably sometime in 2026 we will have a multi-drone solution that will be automated. So there's something called swarming. So essentially, if you have a large building like, say, BC Place, you can set a variety of drones to work simultaneously, and they'll autonomously be able to clean at once, which will drastically speed up the process time.
It's like a cleaning show at that point,
It
you know?
is, yeah. We
Mhm.
thought about that. Maybe we could have have them, in synchronization or something of that nature, right? So
Very cool. Oh, I love the technology side of things. Everyone cares about the outcome and the cost, but, I find that part fascinating.
well, technology is the future, and one of the big things that we wanted to focus on was not only developing something that was going to have a great end result, but we wanted to develop and build new technology along the way because as we develop more and more technology, there's all these spin-offs that come as a result. And so if there's ways for us to do a better job, if there's ways for us to report more details or collect more data on a particular building to improve the way we do our service, then that's going to be a paramount thing for us as well, right? So
Absolutely.
um, to your point, 1 out of 120 jobs results in an incident report. So again, as I mentioned, boot going through a window or some sort of an issue. Anyone who's been a property manager will cringe whenever there's an incident report because it's more paperwork for them, it's more headaches for them, it's going to make their lives difficult. And of course, property managers, generally speaking, are up to their eyeballs in all kinds of different things that they need to be dealing with. If we can eliminate some of that work and make their lives easier, that's our ultimate goal.
I have a huge amount of sympathy for them and that level of correspondence, and I can't really imagine the hassle of and I was shocked when I heard that hundreds of windows a year are broken in the process of cleaning, under
Yeah.
traditional methods. So
Our
this
other
is
partner
not
sorry, go ahead.
it's just not a rare occurrence.
It happens more than you think, and especially if you can imagine, if you break a window, there's something serious, now all of a sudden that area is no longer deemed to be safe for occupancy. So if we're in a commercial space, now that office area now needs to be basically quarantined off, which is a massive inconvenience, a huge cost associated with it. And sometimes these windows are not easy to get. It requires, can take weeks or even months in some cases to get these windows replaced. So during that time, there's that downtime, which is, massively inconvenient. I don't think property managers get enough credit for just how much stuff they have to deal with. Our other partner, Mike, he came from the building engineering envelope space. So we constantly worked with people that were in the engineering space. And of course, engineering requires there to be things fixed, which means problems. And again, any way that we can find a way to make people's lives easier, that goes a very, very long way. So again, we try to, eliminate as many of those incident reports as possible to the point of safety. 5% of workers every single year will report a serious claim, which is, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you compound that out over a 5-year period, that's like 25% of the workforce submits some claim or another. And that's a serious claim, not just a small claim. So that results in a significant amount of money that's spent on, various claims, insurance, et cetera, and which is terrifying here, falls account for between 70 and 80% of all workplace fatalities. Thankfully, there's more safety gear and harnesses and whatnot in place. But yeah, sadly, every year in Canada, a certain number of people pass away as a result of this business, which is again something I had no comprehension of prior to getting involved in this.
Really dangerous work. Your
Yeah,
image there on the left shows someone dangling off a building which is sloped inwards. We've all seen those buildings that have shades or some projections from them, or shapes that are awkward, for anyone who's attempting to do the exterior cleaning. There, it is not just a matter of doing standard, easy to clean, smooth-sided vertical buildings.
I ironically, maybe not so ironically, I'm not a huge fan of heights. So maybe it's a good thing I'm in this particular side of the business. But my hat goes off to these people that are in the bows and chairs and scale off the side of the building. I don't have the muscle for it.
I don't have the muscle or the bravery to handle that, frankly. So we have been very fortunate to have them, but I'm delighted to hear that this technology is going to put their boots on the ground and allow them to retrain as pilots instead of dangling there. They can do this much more safely.
Absolutely. And that's the one thing I do want to touch on very briefly is there's obviously a huge concern with sort of, this whole AI revolution that's been happening over the last few years. And there's been a mad sort of rush for this panic of, am I losing my job? What's going to happen? And so one of the big things that we focused on heavily is we're not here to replace we're not here to we're not here to get rid of jobs. We're here to replace them, right? So, as you said, someone that was previously, scaling off a building and sort of in that kind of environment, they can get a pilot's license and have in my opinion, probably a much easier job. And then their efficiency goes up, and so it's not so much a matter of replacing; it's getting rid of. It's just replacing or changing what those jobs are. And again, to my point earlier, $100 million in WCB claims annually and 1,100 broken windows in Canada a year. So if we can eliminate some of those issues, we're happy to do so. It's 1,100 less incident reports that property managers have to file.
Amen to that.
Absolutely. Again, we kind of harp on this a little bit, but again, can't stress enough that we drop those claims by 99%, saving tens of millions of dollars a year, avoiding fatalities. And again, I always say high tech and low risk is the best way you can have something set up.
Agreed. Now we see the water line there attached to the drone in this photograph.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how high they can go?
Yeah, so we have two systems. We have one system where it basically can run 22 stories to 24 stories without incident. So it's very, very simple. Anything above that, we have what's like a rope pulley system. So there's essentially a pulley that's on the top of the building that just stabilizes the drone to allow it to go higher. So believe it or not, the drone can actually go up to 40, 50 stories without incident. The problem is that if it catches a gust of wind, the weight of the hose all of a sudden becomes a problem. So the hose is pressurized with the water going up. So it's actually very little weight despite there being a long hose attached to it. But the moment it gets kind of angular, that hose can all of a sudden turn into a dead weight. And so we have to protect the drone from kind of having
Interesting.
that incident. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm still impressed that they can get over 20 stories with nothing. That's
Yeah. Yeah, it's
a
it's pretty
very
it's
good
pretty
height.
incredible. Keep in mind, I mean, these aren't basic drones. I mean, the drones that we have are, they're industrial grade. They have a very good payload capacity, but nonetheless, yeah, I mean, they can go, and like I said, they can go higher than 24 stories holding the hose. The only concern would be from a safety standpoint. So we can go 22 stories without incident. We have, as said, we have a tether attached to the bottom to prevent the
Mhm.
drone from, flying away or doing anything too squirrely. But at the end of the day, safety is the number one concern.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Anyone that's been involved in any sort of cleaning business has been aware of the fact that the biggest cost is sometimes not the window cost, it's the cost of setting things up. So things like these boom lifts, scissor jacks, or setting up scaffolding is a huge expense. Also, if you set up scaffolding, you often have to have someone there as a security guard to watch over it during off hours to prevent people from using it as a jungle gym or gosh only knows what. So with our system, by the time those things are set up, we're already in, cleaned, and out. So one of the things that's beneficial is just the speed as well as the ease of use. One thing that's commonly not known is buildings that are under a certain number of stories aren't required to have hooks. And so as a result, there's no way for anyone to rappel down the side of the building. So there's certain buildings that there is no repellent option. They have to use a boom lift or a scissor jack. So
Right.
for any sort of 8 story and below, our service is absolutely paramount because there's no hooks for anyone to link into. They don't need the boom lift or scissor jack, and those can cost about $5,000 a week to rent. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, I'd read a lot about roof anchors and both the lack of them in some situations and then the costs of maintaining those. And it's very
yeah,
interesting to hear that there are alternatives now that will allow those buildings without them or otherwise to get this done without that expensive setup and rental.
absolutely, yeah. And again, the goal is to focus on getting things done quickly as well as obviously getting it done at price competitive position. One of the things that I really love about what we do is because we have a drone, we can attach a variety of different modules to it. And so we can actually scan buildings basically the same way as you'd have an MRI scan your body. And so the great thing is we can do all sorts of engineering reports as a result of that. So more and more buildings are going towards a net zero. So again, like energy efficiency and whatnot. So we can do a variety of different scans. You can see on the right-hand side, there's sort of this thermal imaging, and we can do a variety of different scans during different times of the day. You can overlay those. So you basically have a bar that toggles back and forth. You can sort of see which, over what time period, what heat loss there is in what area. On the left-hand side, which is great, if there's a particular building that we're working on, and we did this with BCIT, for example, the Burnaby campus, there were a variety of problem areas. And so what happened was, is the property manager, rather than going on site, meeting with us and pointing out this window, this window, this window, they can actually get a 3D model. So before we go to any job site, when we quote, we do an entire 3D scan of the building. We submit that and provide that to the building, whether it's the property manager or whoever's responsible for looking after that building. Once we give them that, then they can actually put annotations on that building. They can say, these windows need more work. These areas are problem areas. We want some more attention on this area, et cetera. And then once we finish cleaning the building, if there's any challenges, they can actually put those annotations in after. So when we come back, rather than trying to track down the property manager who's probably very busy or might not even be on site because they're managing multiple locations, we can just go on site. We can go, oh, okay, this area, this area, this area, and off we go. And it makes things much easier for us, makes it very, very easy for the manager on site as well.
This is valuable for the building in several respects because you're also getting some excellent imagery as well as this thermal imagery for engineering purposes and updating engineering documents and reports. I mean, I'm assuming that Mike was quick to jump on this given his engineering background.
Yeah. And so one of the great things is typically when we do an engineering report, someone drops in off the Boson chair. They'll take a couple of sort of representative samples of the building. So a couple of pictures per side, and that's it. But there's a lot of areas of the building that aren't necessarily captured. With us, we have in total 8K full encapsulation of the entire building. So we can do everything from crack chasing to window seals to you name it. And so we can submit that and prioritize that using AI with the machine learning to the engineering company. And it gives them an entire report. So if they quote on a building on what needs to be done from a maintenance standpoint, typically it's an estimate. With this, because they've now got a full picture of the entire building, they can get right down to the penny on how much it's going to cost to fix.
That is fantastic.
And if you're an owner of a building, the last thing you want to have is, unnecessary expenses or surprises, right? So again, to the engineering reports can be scanned, provided to engineering firms. The additional data from the scans can be used to identify problems early on. So again, I'm a big believer in preventative care. So if we do a thermal scan and we can see there's a particular area of the building that's got extreme heat loss and it's unusual, it might point to the fact that there may be a crack or a leak or something that we can catch early on before it becomes a bigger problem. And again, we have patented technology where we can compare data over a series of times. So if we were to do a scan every year, we can compare year over year and it'll show, okay, we can see that this area year over year is getting degraded at a faster rate. Then it gets us an opportunity for an engineering firm to come in and either do a deeper analysis or to determine what needs to be fixed if it needs to be.
Impressive. So, Grant, let's just say that we're looking at a seven-story mid-rise building.
Mhm.
Um, it might have 50 units in it. It might have 100 units in it. Uh, how much does this scan cost if they're interested in potentially getting the exterior cleaned and you're doing this
So
first?
great question. So if we're doing the window and facade cleaning, we typically actually do the scan as a complimentary service. So we give them the full 8K resolution that gets to stay with the property manager. And that's part of our service as well. So we're really big on, wanting to prolong the longevity of the building. And again, happy people tend to come back. So, if we can provide an extra service that keeps the building looking great and keeps the building in great condition, then, it's served us very well as a company. So
Fantastic. That's a great value add, and obviously the intelligence that gives for the owners is significant.
Yeah, it's massive. It's also great too for people that want to buy a particular unit. So if they're looking at a particular building and they're kind of like, is this a leaky condo? Has there been these problems? Those reports can be accessible as well. And so it gives buyers that are buying a particular unit a little bit more confidence to know that there's actually been basically an MRI scan done of the building, and it will give them all sorts of details as to the longevity and the protection of it, right? So
Love that.
yeah. So, yeah, we have reporting. So again, when anyone's on a particular project, they can use their iPhone or their Android phone, and as a result, they can get sort of real-time updates. So again, everything from like AutoCAD, reporting, everything. So whether it's their phone, MacBook, PC, real-time updates to know what the job is. So for example, there's a job, how much percentage is this job done today if somebody's off site. They're able to then look at that and determine, right? So
That's cool.
yeah, so pretty much that's I mean, feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like, but that's essentially sort of what we've been doing the last year, and we're continuing to improve upon that. As you can see here, this is Vancouver Convention Center in beautiful Vancouver, one of our projects as well that we've been so graciously cleaned. We clean it 3 times a year. We're on our third time cleaning it coming up. So, and again, looks better than ever.
It does. It's a spectacular building in a great location. I'm had no idea you guys cleaned it, so that's fantastic. I see an email there for Mike. What's your email address, Grant?
It's just first initial dot last name at skydweller.ca. We can send that off to everyone. Again, Mike's
Perfect.
the
Yeah,
guy to talk to. He's the man in charge, but happy to help any way
got
I
it.
can as well too.
Got it. Got it. So for those that are watching, you can either go to skydweller.ca or you can use this QR code to get in touch with the team and to learn more about what's going on. Um, I do have a few questions. What types of buildings and surfaces do you clean most effectively?
So our best, so I mean, we could say we clean everything, but, and we do. The
Yeah.
best thing that we can do in terms of price wise is we're absolutely brilliant at cleaning building facade and commercial buildings. So for example, hospitals, schools, any sort of building that has a large footprint. So you could think, say, less vertical and more sort of large scale. We
Yeah.
absolutely just we're unbeatable. There's no one can even come close to touching us when it comes to that sort of a business, which is great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So industrial, commercial, again, we can clean windows extremely well. We're probably slightly more price competitive than traditional window cleaning. We're definitely more in line with the norm. The advantage with us is we're just a lot faster. So if you're in a residential building and you don't like having those ropes banging on your window, which I get every once in a while in my building, we can kind of be in and out in a much faster time frame, which is much more convenient. So it might be, only slightly less expensive, but you're going to have a lot less downtime, and we're going to be in and out very quickly.
Someone's asked if you can clean solar panels. Is this
We
appropriate
can.
for that?
Yes, we can. So we can clean wind turbines, solar panels, hydroelectric dams, you name it.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah,
We talked about how high you could go. That blows my mind. Hot water. Are you heating this on site and filling the tank
we
and
are.
deionizing
Yes.
there?
Correct. Yeah. So we heat the water on site. So we have a 1,000 liter reservoir tank inside the van. And so again, as I mentioned, that water is deionized. So any of the water that's coming out of that drone is going to be that deionized, zero particulate water. So everything goes through that system. If we're on site and we need some extra water, we usually just have a spigot that we hook up to the system on site, and that will filter on site as well. So everything that we need is in the van. It operates on its own, and yeah, that's pretty much everything gets heated up. Again, the great thing about heating everything up is I'll always use the example of you're washing dishes, cold water versus hot water. Hot
Yeah.
water always gets stuff off a lot easier than the cold water, and it evaporates a lot quicker as well too.
I have a 12-year-old that still insists on using cold or cool water, and I just go, he'll learn.
Makes a big
Um,
difference.
customer satisfaction. When you're working in a residential environment, obviously everyone is quite particular.
Mhm.
How do you ensure that everyone is happy at the end of the day with the results of your work, and how do you make sure that they're comfortable before they commit to this new technology, that they're going to be happy with the results?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll touch on a couple of things that come up. The first thing is people sometimes half the people are really curious and very excited about it, and the other half might be a little bit concerned because they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's a drone outside my window. What's it
Right.
doing? What's going on?" Right? So one thing I always want to be very clear is we do not have a recording of anything. So while our drones are actually in flight, there's no recording. So we're recording the flight path. So we're recording GPS wise where the drone is, but there's
Yeah.
no camera peeking into the window. We're actually not allowed to do that. So there's actually a safety and privacy issue as a result of that.
Yeah.
And if anyone that's had an embarrassing moment where somebody's been rappelling down the window and they've walked out of the shower or something like that, it can be a bit embarrassing. So thankfully, we don't have any scenario where anything's being recorded. That's one positive thing. And then as far as expectations, I always find a big part of it just comes down to communicating in advance. And so we do our best to communicate with the on-site building manager, and then it's their responsibility again, as much as we can to
Of course.
communicate to the owners of the building what to expect, what the time frame is going to look like, and of course, if there are any deficiencies or any concerns, we want to try and address those right away. Again, this comes back to why maintenance is so important. If a building hasn't been cleaned in a considerable amount of time, and sometimes we've encountered that, we have to set the expectation. So if the building hasn't been cleaned in a year and a half to 2 years, and we come for the first time,
Yep.
we may not get it cleaned 100%. We'll get it as close as we can, but I think a big part of it is just setting that expectation. And as long as people know what to expect, we find that we've never really had any issue. The only time there's been a problem is where somebody's expecting perfection and maybe something hasn't been cleaned in a long time, and we're 90% of the way there. But because they were expecting 100%, of course, there's that shortfall. So managing expectations is a huge part. And if
Regular
there are any
maintenance.
issues, we can come back and clean. So we always have a 48-hour policy where if there are any issues, please let us know immediately. Again, those annotations that we showed on that map, we'll come back within, either the day after or 2 days after and remedy those issues and fix them immediately. And those things happen.
Awesome. That's good to hear. That'll be very comforting. Communication is always key in a residential environment. Whatever's happening in that building, making sure that owners understand what's happening and why it's happening is important. And great that you're communicating on the ground with those that are able to pass that message on. Grant, I've learned a lot about drone cleaning today. I didn't know much before this session, so I'm delighted to hear how effective this can be, and obviously the impacts that it can have not only on cost but on safety. I think that that is fantastic. I want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us today to tell us about it.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Next week, I'm going to be joined by Sanjay Maharaj of Electric Asset. We're going to be discussing electrical planning reports and EV charging. So another condo-related topic for us. Thanks again, Grant, for coming, and we'll see everyone next time.